So I've been getting a lot of requests to rank the MCU movies to date. And I have to say, Kevin Feige, 14 movies in 8 years? Not bad. And now that I've seen all 14, having just watched Doctor Strange, I'm in a position to rank them. We also have a little bit of a window until the next MCU movie, which is Guardians of the Galaxy in May 2017. Also, I'm wearing my Marvel sweatshirt, so that was another reason to do it today. And thank you for everyone who's complimented me on this. I've gotten so many requests as to where I purchased it. I purchased it at the Disney store. I did it online, and since I've gotten so many requests, I've actually put a link down below in the video description to the link to purchase it. So go forth and spread Marvel cheer to all who see you, as I am so happy to have done for so many of you. All right, so the worst Marvel movie. Number 14, that is Thor: The Dark World. So bad. In fact, I had to apologize to my friends who I dragged to see the movie. I was like, are you not going to see the latest Marvel movie? Don't be a counterculturalist weirdo. Come on. And then, during the movie, I was looking at them. One was falling asleep. And so I was just like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. The only thing that provided entertainment during the movie, actually, was a bunch of there were some teen girls in the theater who were all fangirling out over Loki. But you know who else should apologize? Is I apologize to my friends, Natalie Portman, because she clearly didn't want to be in the movie, and she really, I think that energy was really brought the whole thing down, because you could tell she didn't want to be in the movie. It was a very big change from the first Thor, where she had such a huge crush on Chris Hemsworth that she was so happy to be there, but I believe she got married in between the two films, and that was the last thing that was keeping her there. That's so unprofessional. And she has an Oscar. All right, so anyway, also, I think at that point they still didn't know what to do with Thor. The upcoming movie looks very encouraging. Chris Hemsworth is clearly a comedian. And then also, because they didn't know what to do with Thor, and Loki had so many people fangirling over him, and some fanboying, that they were making the Thor movies kind of the Loki movies. But then they didn't even know what to do with him. They were like, is he a villain? Is he a hero? We can't decide. And his dye job was so bad in this movie on his hair. Definitely the worst. All right, number 13, Captain America, the First Avenger. And I'm sure some of you are already furiously typing to defend that movie. But come on, speaking of not wanting to be there, Hugo Weaving did not want to be the Red Skull. And it's really a shame because that's Captain America's major villain, and it's gone forever. I mean, I guess you could put that face on anybody, come to think of it, but I think Hugo Weaving's voice is very distinct, and maybe I don't know if that's a really actor-friendly role, right? And also it's you want to play a weird Red Skull Nazi, it just seems a little cartoonish and not as as exciting an opportunity as some of the other characters that are available. So I can understand why Hugo Weaving didn't like playing the role, and I can understand why nobody else would probably be interested. Although, as many of you say, this is the chance for an unknown to step forward, right? Who knows? But then also the other problem I had with this movie is the ridiculous USO montage in that horrible first Captain America costume where they were like, and then Cap is in World War II, and you were just like, could you write some genuine scenes, please? I just had major problems with that. I really didn't like it. And then also, at the very end of the movie, clearly Captain America would rather die than go to the dance with Peggy, which should have been our first clue, Stucky fans. I wouldn't say I'm a fan of Stucky, it's just that I realize how obvious it is. I mean, I think there are other things that he could have done with the ship, to be perfectly honest. When you watch the scene, Peggy's like, are you sure you can't come? Or maybe land it somewhere? He's like, no, I'm pretty sure I gotta die, Peggy. I'm pretty sure I just can't make the dance. And he didn't seem that sad about it to me personally. So, I mean, one could say that was the depths or the limitations of Chris Evans' acting, but I think that he's made some interesting acting choices towards Sebastian Stan's Bucky in the later movies, so I'm sticking by my Stucky theory. And we'll talk about Stucky with Civil War. But anyway, so that's the 13th movie on the list. Then number 12, I gotta go with Iron Man, because I really dislike the first Iron Man, actually, especially the horrible third act and villain. As I talked about with the top villains last week, who remembers Jeff Bridges' character? And it was Jeff Bridges in a comic book movie. How is that forgettable? Yet it was. But it's not the worst movie because it was a star turn by Robert Downey Jr. I loved when he was doing that weapons display at the beginning of the movie, and the MCU was born with this film. Now, that very same year, another movie came out called The Incredible Hulk, which is next on my list. And while Mark Ruffalo ultimately won us over, I mean, it's on, before we get into the good stuff, because you'll be like, yeah, you're saying nice stuff about this movie. Why is it so low down on your list? Well, how about The Abomination, or really most of the movie, to be perfectly honest? I mean, its low position on the list is obvious, but it's not at the bottom of the list, because while Mark Ruffalo would ultimately win us over, Edward Norton was amazing casting, because while Joss Whedon changed the character significantly and very popularly in the Avengers, Edward Norton emulated the comics, not just visually, but in Banner's very shy, standoffish persona. Almost a little unlikable. Because, I mean, like, remember how excited we got about this photo? And I remember watching this movie and seeing the Bruce Banner, like, chase scene. I believe it was in Brazil. And it was really good. So there were good elements there. And it's too bad that Edward Norton and Kevin Feige just couldn't get along, which would become a recurring theme in the MCU, with Kevin Feige always winning. All right. So next up, the first Thor, which actually you can see is my favorite of the first movies for Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man, because I found this movie to be surprisingly enjoyable. It was a great fish out of water comedy. And while I don't totally agree with the way Asgard has been portrayed, and you know, that's all the way Kenneth Branagh established it, and I have some problems with that, I did think that the discussions about how Asgard related to Midgard, aka Earth, were very interesting. You know, like, magic is just science we don't understand. Although, tell that to Doctor Strange. Although, to some degree, Doctor Strange has a very scientific mind, which, as we can see in the latest movie, makes him a very good magic student. But also, I liked the idea of how Asgard related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole. And there was a big question as to whether or not fans of Iron Man, etc., could get on board with, you know, this Viking god, right? And I think that this movie succeeded in making that clear as to how it could work. Also, they did cast Chris Hemsworth, who, while it's taken them a while to get a feel for him, how to best utilize him, again, as I said, I'm very excited for what's coming up with that character, with the more comedic angle. Then next up, Iron Man 3, where Shane Black did the super 90s trick of having a Christmas movie in the middle of the summer, right? Like, why did Iron Man 3 take place during Christmas? It made no sense. It was just so 90s. But I thought that the movie had a great setup and really good ideas, but unfortunately they were just poorly executed. Also, the whitewashing of the Mandarin and the waste of another major villain. Like, just like the Red Skull is supposed to be Captain America's major villain, the Mandarin is Iron Man's major villain. And it's like messing up the Joker for these guys. And it was really unfortunate to watch. And even more disappointing here, because it was fueled by a business decision to try and appeal to the Chinese government, because they don't want to have any Chinese villains. So, as I said in my review of Iron Man 3, why would they be excited to have like a really awesome villain who is from China? I mean, people love villains. Look at Jared Leto as the Joker. I think that was a miscalculation on everybody's part. But they've left the door open for the real Mandarin to someday appear. But Iron Man 3 also was a wasted opportunity, because it should have been Demon in a Bottle. I mean, I know they touched on that in Iron Man 2, but that's really what they should have done. And I know that it's a Disney family movie, but there's tasteful ways to do it. And considering some of the more adult things that have been introduced as of late into the MCU, I think they could go there. All right, next up, Guardians of the Galaxy, which I know many of you love, and I respect the film's success. However, I have major problems with the attitudes and personas of several of the characters. I just find the movie at multiple points offensive, and not from a feminist point of view. I just personally don't like the characters, and I don't like some of the messages of the movie. I just have a real problem with that. I always feel everyone should try and be their best and do their best, and I think that that's not the mantra of the Guardians of the Galaxy. But it is well made, and also the soundtrack was a huge hit, and so I have great respect for that. Also, the movie made Chris Pratt a star, but interestingly, not yet a Marvel star. I think maybe Scarlett Johansson's in the same boat where, you know, she's not exclusively associated with the MCU. But everybody else, like Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, they're all Marvel stars, right? But Chris Pratt, he became like this huge sex symbol overnight. But then, you know, I don't think Marvel can particularly or solely lay claim to him, which is very interesting. All right, so the next up is Avengers: Age of Ultron, which was a really fun movie, and I had a great time watching it, and it introduced a number of great characters, and then needlessly took one away. But I think that Ultron, as creepy and awesome as he was in the promos, with the Got No Strings remix, I don't think that he had a particularly good payoff. And also, while I liked the Black Widow Hulk romance, I thought that was an interesting idea, that also didn't have a good payoff. And it took a weird, unsatisfying turn for both parties, right? Like, why would you introduce a romance and basically be like in the same movie? Well, that was a bad idea. And it was just, it was not good. So I think that, and also Joss Whedon knows he didn't make a great, I think it was a good movie. He didn't make an amazing movie, and he said it was because there were just too many cooks in the kitchen, and you could feel like things were shoehorned in there, and it was a little bit of a stew. But I thought it was tasty. I thought the Hulk Iron Man fight was great. I mean, there were a lot of good moments. It was a good movie. The next, though, Ant-Man, which I really thought was wonderful for a number of reasons. I loved the first real MCU couple, two people in a relationship who are equals, and that's Scott Lang and Janet Van Dyne. I mean, that's why you're getting Ant-Man and Wasp, because the movie demanded it, right? Well, the movie made fans demand it. I also thought that the humor was incredibly clever. Marvel movies are always funny, but I like that they're getting smarter as well. Like the Baskin-Robbins Always Finds Out line was great. When he said that in the when he was also at Baskin-Robbins, I think that's the point where a lot of us fell in love with the film. And Paul Rudd in the role. He was great casting. And he's had a huge payoff, get it, in Civil War. And he was also hilarious there. In addition to being able to bring Giant Man in, you could see that his very unique brand of humor keeps things interesting. And so I just think Ant-Man's a great movie. It's not higher up because of its crappy villain, and in some points it seems a little TV movie-like. I still think Peyton Reed's not a great director. He just didn't mess up what Edgar Wright put together and the script that Paul Rudd and Adam McKay rewrote. But it could have been a little bit of a better movie in some regards. But I think that where it works, it really works and is exciting. Next up, the first Avengers, the first big superhero team-up movie, all right? And tons of iconic moments. The circle shot where they're all standing together, right? It was just great. And Joss Whedon really delivered a very good movie. That's why everybody was so excited about him for a while, and why he and Kevin Feige were good friends for a while. It also debuted Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk with that great line, "I'm always angry," another iconic moment. And it also, speaking of iconic moments, it was the first major end credit scene with the shawarma. So Joss Whedon can claim ownership on that. We'll talk about who took over or who took the reins a little bit in just a few moments, but I think Joss Whedon deserves credit for that. Next, Iron Man 2. That's going to be a controversial choice, but I love this movie. I love Tony Stark. I love big business. So having things like the race at Monaco, Stark Expo, Justin Hammer as one of the villains with his self-tanner, it was just fabulous. I thought that Iron Man 2 was the perfect blending of Iron Man with James Bond and a little bit of Disney, Walt Disney the man sprinkled on there. I just thought it was really spectacular. I love that movie. I thought it had great action sequences with Whiplash at the Monaco race. Really good stuff. Then we're getting close to the top here. Next up, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which proved that a comic book movie could be something more, in this case, a political thriller. It also made Chris Evans as Captain America a star, and even more so, it made the character of Captain America on the level of Superman for the first time, and perhaps I think in some ways replacing Superman for today's comic book character fans. That's huge. I think that Warner Brothers should be working very hard to fix that, because Superman is supposed to be the main American superhero, and I think today it's Captain America. I also think that this is important and a great movie because it introduced the Russo brothers to the MCU, and they would go on to replace Whedon as the MCU architects. And I also think that, of course, it brought about the Winter Soldier, who is an incredibly important character, not only from a plot point, but also with fans. He's really, it's crazy that it's coming from Sebastian Stan. But I think maybe they cast Sebastian Stan because while he doesn't have a ton of fans in the broad scope of things, I think that he's very popular with the people who are Stucky fans. And I think that Sebastian Stan, his Winter Soldier, is so fan-friendly in terms of his backstory and the human, personal, and romantic drama that he brings to the MCU. Also, his action sequences are amazing. I think that every time the Winter Soldier is in an action sequence, it's just so good. From here to Civil War. Really good stuff. Then, My second favorite Marvel movie overall is Doctor Strange. Oh, I thought it was so good. It's an incredibly well-crafted film at every level. It uses the Marvel formula, which as we can see is very successful, but as a springboard to do some really interesting and innovative things, both in terms of filmmaking and storytelling. Also, you'll notice that for every movie here except The Winter Soldier, there's a flaw, right? But I think that Doctor Strange, and to some degree The Winter Soldier, are flawlessly executed. And the reason that Doctor Strange comes a little bit higher for me is because I think it's a richer, warmer, and more intimate film, a more emotional film. I was very impressed with Doctor Strange. I think it delivered on every level. And you don't feel like, oh, well, I have to know about this other film, and this is cool because it relates to this. And I guess that's also what makes Doctor Strange so special. It totally can stand on its own. Then my favorite Marvel movie, I gotta give it up for Captain America Civil War. Because Civil War was not only well constructed creatively, it has a few problems. I don't think it's as fun to watch as some of these other movies. But not only is it's very compelling, a very compelling film story-wise, but from a business perspective, you cannot beat the construction of Civil War. The Russo brothers have said that they work very hard to make sure their movies can't be made fun of online, on the internet. But I think they also clearly construct them so that they can generate maximum online chatter. Nobody can generate online chatter and interest. Well, maybe David Ayer can with Suicide Squad, but like the Russos, they're really good. The airport battle with Giant Man, huge interest. Black Panther, Spider-Man, Stucky, they know what they're doing. But they pull it back just enough that it can also be denied by people who aren't into Stucky. It's really smart. It's some of the best queer baiting I've ever seen. Because I think Elsa wasn't not intentional, but this is intentional at this point. Also, they know how to do a compelling end credit sequence. The Winter Soldier end credit sequence was amazing, and and then the end credit sequences in Civil War were so good. And Doctor Strange, it can't compete with Civil War when it comes to end credit sequences. The Russos know how to get you excited about what's coming next with a major reveal that's worth discussing, that generates, again, conversation. And so I think they also deserve major pros for that. Also, the emotional battle at the end of the movie between Iron Man and Captain America is really not only something to behold, but something very unique to the entire genre, not just the MCU. So the fact that they got it there, that they got the movie there with, I think, Stucky to some degree, but then also Robert Downey Jr.'s acting, is just so amazing. Really, really good. And I love that the movie has repercussions beyond Civil War. I think that's also something that's very exciting that we rarely see in genre filmmaking. I mean, to some degree, Winter Soldier did as well with the ending of S.H.I.E.L.D., but you don't feel it like you feel the changes at the end of Civil War. Also, the idea to take Captain America dark, to take the Cyclops storyline and give it to this character because Fox ain't using it, is also very smart. And again, something that generates major online interest. So I marvel at Captain America Civil War, not just because the way it's constructed from a filmmaking and storytelling perspective, but because of how it's constructed from a business perspective. It is a thing of beauty. All right, so that's my ranking of the Marvel movies to date. I'm very curious to hear your rankings down below. If you want to get that sweatshirt, enjoy. All right, thanks for watching, and you can check out some more videos right now.